My name is Sam, and we will be doing a to-do list today with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We'll be using Visual Studio Code, as you can see, as the IDE for this project, but you can use whatever you feel comfortable with. And so let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a folder. And make sure you create this folder in your C drive, because if you create it somewhere else, it will be hard for you um, to 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 push it to GitHub, because I had problems with that before. So make sure you save it in the right location. And we're going to call this to-do list application. No, web application. Web app. That's good. And yes. Open the folder. And the next thing is to create our files. So index.html, style.css, and main.js. So we're going to start with our CSS. We're going to start with our HTML. Yeah, my bad. So the first thing we're going to do with the HTML is use the doc type HTML. That actually just helps us have a nice head and body and portion of tag for for the project. So let's connect our CSS to this HTML. So we do that by writing link in the head portion of and we just put a slash, and you can see our CSS already is there. Save. And let's also do the same with the JavaScript. We do that by script source main and save it. So the next thing we're going to do is let's take care of our font. But before we do that, since we're already here, let us see how the final project is going to look at. So this is what we're trying to build. So you see it's very basic, nothing too much. This is more on the functionality of the to-do app and learning how you can use JavaScript to actually take the elements and put the element wherever you want it. Take the element from the input and add event listener to the button. So when you click the button, a function will be called which will put the text which was in the inputs wherever we want to put it. So like here now, if you put study as your to do, you see it, it appears below. You can add gym, you can add read, you can write jog, and you see everything appears. And we also have this function here. Everything appears with a button and like a click, an icon. So with this, we can click the ones that we've done, and whenever we want to, we can just delete them. Now you see, it deletes very nice. And yeah, it's a basic to-do list, nothing too much. We're not going crazy on this. It's just to get to understand the functionality and how to make everything connect to each other and actually work well. So the next thing we're going to do is going to get our font. Going to go to Google Fonts. We'll be using the Poppins because that's the only. I tried other fonts, but poop. Poppins, yes, that's it. I tried other fonts, but this is just the best looking. And I think I'm also very used to it. So yeah. So we go here, take the link, copy it, and that's it with the fonts. Go back to our HTML, go to the head. And yes, paste it here. So now we have our fonts. The next thing is this title here. Let's change that to Sam's or Sammy's to-do list. Anyone. So that's the title. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on the body section. So we're going to create a title in the body. And this title is going to, not table, title, yes. This title is going to be basically our title, yes. No, actually, just thought about it. No, we created a div first. So the first div, we're going to call that container, class container. And inside this div container, we're going to have our header. And inside our header, we're going to have our h1, which is going to say to-do list. So after this, that's all we do for the header. Now we create a form. This form will have no action. It's just going to be a basic form. And inside that form, we're going to put our input. That's what's going to take. Yeah, it's going to be text. Give it a class of to do. Input. And then below that, we're going to create a button. We actually don't need to really give this any class because just calling button should be able, this is for our CSS I'm talking about. So for our styling, just using the button and putting whatever styles we want will work perfectly on it. So this button is going to be called submit. It's going to be where we submit our to-dos. But let me just give it a class name. I think it's good practice, but it's not mandatory. Button, to do button. So then after our class, we create another div. This time we're going to call this container 2. And this container 2 is where we're going to have our UI, our unordered list. Give it a class to do list UL. Yeah. So this is about it for our HTML. So let's save it and see what it looks like right now. Yes, we can see it looks really just basic, how it's supposed to look. So that's part one done. So the next part is the CSS. So in our CSS, we're going to start with this to actually set everything on the page to 0. So the margin, our margin will be 0. Our padding, the same 0. Just so everything is at the right spot. So when we're changing the positions, we're working at 0. We're not working at a value we're not really sure about. So yes, box sizing, border box. And if you have any questions, don't forget to put it in the comments below. I will answer them. If you have any question, you have any comments, you have maybe a different way you did yours, just put in the comments and yeah, let's get to it. So next, we'll style our form and our header. Put a comma there. Set our font family to Poppins sans serif. So the next thing also is we're going to set our minimum height here to about 20 VH. So let's make this so we can see what we're doing at the same time. Justify content, put it as center. Yes. I'm going to be saving it. Any word I type, I'll save it just so we can see the changes being done by the CSS. Display. It's not going to be inline, it's going to be flex. You see? So now we see what the display flex does. And then align item center. So yeah, we're done with the form and the header. The next thing is just a quick, just to change the font on the H1. To change the weight of it to, because just so it's a little bit bigger. It's a 700. So after H1, we can go to our container. No, let's go to our input, our form input. And our button, our form button. As you can see, I'm not using the class name but it's just good to have in case I want to be really specific. I can always go with that. So the padding 0.5 rem, not too much. Yeah, it's a little bit bigger. And we're going to have a border here. border, not too big, 2 pixels. It's going to be solid, black. Mhm. So now we can go to our form input alone. And some of these things might seem necessary, but I want to be really specific when I'm typing this. And that would be the input. Because I'm going to change the background color, so I want everything to be exactly how it's exactly how I want it to be. So the background is white. So a form button. A form button background is going to be radial gradient, and I have a note here of the color I want to use in my notepad, as you can see. And this color is going to be, yes, you guessed it right, purple. I don't think it's really a guess because I already showed you the final product, but yeah, that's it. And this is actually, let's go back up, and I want to do the body real quick. Just set some of the constants I want in the body. So the minimum height of the body, I want it to be 100 VH. Minimum width too, the same. Or let me remove the notepad here. It's not needed anymore. And then the body is gonna have a border too, just for the design. I, the thing with this CSS is something you should play with. If you're doing the same thing as I'm doing, I doubt you're gonna learn that much. So play with it. You might put a border, you might not put a border, you might just play with it. That's the best way to learn. So yes, this border is going to be 1px, and it's going to be solid and black, the same. And we can see the changes being done. And the last is the background. The background is going to be this time not gradual, it's going to be linear. Just so we see the difference, because the button is radial, and now this is linear gradient, and we're going to use the same color, but it's going to be different. This is going to be more linear, and the other one is going to be more gradient, just like the name says, basically. Yes, and we can see the magic of the CSS here. Save. Really? No, don't save then. I know, I just hide here. Okay. Yes, we can see it. It's starting to look like the finished product. And the next thing we're going to do is, let's see. We could leave it like this, but let me just add a border to that div. So now we're going to do the second div, which is container2. Dot container2. So we're going to have a border on container2. Computer is going faster than itself. Border in container 2. The border is going to be 1px solid black. Also going to have a border radius just to give it a little bit of curve so it's not too pointy and sharp of 2. And let me increase this just so we see. I can't really see the change, but when I put it more to the center, we'll see it. And then justify. Content will be center. Display is going to be flex. Underline item center. Yes, so this is basically about it. Let's do the second container. I mean the first container, we just did the second container. That's going to have a border too of 4px solid black. We might have to change that because it's looking really, let me make that 3. It's looking really bold. And border radius of 25 pixels. So now we can see it. It's coming about. And linear background. Linear radiance. So, and it is going to be the same color. Yeah, it's a purple day today. So, yes. Now we can see the difference between the radial and the linear. That's why one is a little bit thicker and yeah. Just play with all this stuff. The more you play with it, the more you understand it. So now I think we're done with the CSS and now we can go to the meat or the veggies of this programming language, depending on what you like. So yes, we're in the JavaScript now. And the JavaScript, before we start, good practice, write out the comments of what you're going to do. So basically what we want to do now is we want to type in the input, want to click the submit button, and we want whatever we typed in the input to appear below our below the inputs. And we also want it to appear with a button that deletes the element and an icon that you can use to check the to-dos that you have done. So for sure, one of the first thing we'll need is a query, is a selector, a query selector. So let's type that. This is how you type comments in JavaScript. If you don't know, selector. We'll need a selector. The second thing we will need is an event listener that's going to listen for the click of the button. So we'll have an event listener. Yeah, you have to spell this right if not. Well, in the comments, you don't have to spell it right, but in the main program, any spelling error is going to be fatal. So the next thing is we're going to have our function that's going to be called when the button is clicked. Our functions, we're going to have two functions. Just maybe going ahead, but yeah, just to let you know, we're going to have two functions. We're going to have one function that listens to that basically makes the inputs to appear below the inputs div. And we're going to have another function that allows us to check the the to-dos that we've done and also delete the to-dos. So yes. So now let's start with our query selector. Let me call this query selector, not just select. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So with our query selectors, what are we going to need from our HTML? We're going to need our inputs. We'll need the class name of our inputs. We'll also need the button, and we'll also need our UI, our unordered list elements. So we'll need this class here, we'll need this class and this. So yes, I like copying and pasting just because, just to reduce the amount of bugs that you might later face in the program. It's always good practice when you have it somewhere, just copy and paste and make sure you copy it well too. But yeah, that's about it. So yeah, we create a constant. I'll call this constant to do input, and it's going to equal to document dot query, yeah, query selector. And make sure you pay attention to this. You put a comma and then you put a dot, just like how you would refer to this class in your CSS. You do the same to the HTML, and we paste. So yes, that's our first query selector. I know I'm going to expand this because we're not really doing any this is more functionality. The why I divided the screen was because we're doing the CSS, and I wanted you to see how when I changed the color, when I changed the size, when I did the padding, when I did the margin, all that, for you to see it. Because when you see it change the moment I click save, that makes you understand it better. Well, it makes me understand it better too. So yes, that's it. And we go to the next one, which is the constant for our button. We'll call this button to do. Yeah, don't make it complicated. It's just very basic. Button to do. Same thing. I'm probably going to copy and paste the next one because I don't want to be writing document.query selector another time. And yes, dot. Let's go to our HTML and we take the class button. So now you see why it's always good to just have the class there. Quite I could have just created it now, but it's always good because earlier before I didn't want to really make a class for the button because I was only thinking of the CSS part. But when you go to the JavaScript side and you need this, like you need to be able to, you need the class to be able to refer to that element. Yeah, so now we have that. And the last but not the least, yeah, to do list. That's what's gonna be the name of this. So, wow, I still did the same, whatever. Selector dot paste. No. Let's go to HTML, copy our list class name, and paste it right here. So yes, this is it with our selectors. Now let's go to the event listener. So we just created a constant for our button. So we're going to use that now. Button to do dot add event listener. And yes, going to be a click when the button is clicked. That's why we're writing click here. We want a function to be called. So what is this function? We haven't created the function yet. So you know what? Let's go down to this function section and actually create the function name. So our function name is going to be called function to do app func. To do func. It could be to do func or to do app func. Whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to take an event as its input and yes. So now we can write to do here. Now we can write the function name here and end the line with a colon. Save. Let's go to the project and see. You can notice whenever I click this button, you're seeing it, the whole page reloads. So we have to stop this. And the way we stop this is we use the prevent default method. So let's put a comment here so we know what we're actually doing right now. Stop reloading of stop reloading. That's okay. And the event dot prevent capital default. Let me just make sure I'm recording this because that would be horrible. Yeah, I am. Okay. And yes, so we've done that now. Let's save it and see if it actually works. Wow, it does. Magic. So now the page doesn't reload when we click the button. So this function has done its part. We move to the next. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create what? What are we going to create? We're going to create a div for our li. So we're going to create a div that's going to take the li, and basically this is where the li is going to be in. So how do we create this div? Is we have to create a constant for this div. So let's just write the comment here, create div for li, and li stands for list element or list. You know, you have the ul, and inside the unordered list you have the li. Inside the ordered list you still have the li. So yes, we do constant. So what are we going to call our div? We'll call it to do capital div. Yes. And document dot create. Oh, my mouse is faster than I am. Create create element. This element is a div, and the line with a semicolon. So now this div that we want to create, we have to create a class list for it. So how do we do that? We use the name that we just to do div dot class list dot add, because we're adding a class list to this div right now. And this class list is going to be given the name div list. So that's that part. So the next part now is we're going to create the li itself. You know, here we created a div for the li. Now we're going to create the li for the submit. So when the button is clicked, the submit button is clicked, the li that is going to appear underneath the inputs is what we're going to create right now. So it's going to be basically the same thing. We could easily just copy and paste the first, at least this part. But let's put the comment first because it's good practice. So we know what we're doing. Create li for submit button. And we just paste it, and we just change something. So the name of this is going to be called to-do list updated. Update. You can call it whatever you want. I am just really giving it a name off my head. I don't want to start thinking of stuff like this. So instead of div, we change it to li, and now we use the constant name we just made. We use the constant we just now. We use the inner text, and all these functions. If you don't know what they do, you can always Google them. This is just for it to appear. This is basically saying that this constant should show this inner text that we're going to get from our to-do inputs. And what is our to-do input? Our to-do input is here, which is gotten from our input tag. So basically, it's this line here says get the inner text that comes from this input. Get the value of it. So that's why I would say to-do input dot value. Oh, not node value. See, this is the problem with Visual Studio Code. Sometimes it thinks it's smart, it's too smart. Sometimes it can be smarter than itself and giving me stuff that actually I don't want. So yes. So the next thing is we're going to create a class list for this too. To-do list update dot class list dot add. We're going to call this to-do list item. Yes. So we are done with creating the li for the submit button. The next thing is we start appending, we start connecting them together. So we append the list to our div. So that's the next. We're going to append the list to our div. So we say to do div dot append child to do list update. So let's see what's happening here. Hello. It's not working yet. Let's see. That is because we haven't appended our div to our UL. Wow. So let's do that now. let's append div to UL, our unordered list. So we say to do list dot append child, it's just the same thing, to do div. So now let's see if this bad boy works. And say go to the gym, go to the gym. Wow, it works exactly. So now we actually see it appear. It looks like a list, has the colon even. It is a list, so it should look like a list. So yes, we've done the basic. This is like the basic bare minimum. Yeah, it works. This is what a to-do list does. So anything we're adding from now is just to change the appearance a little bit, to create a button here that we can use to delete, to create a check button. But this, so far right now, we've actually created a to-do list. So if this is the core of this project, and now we're just going to add more better user interface. So what we're going to create now is, let's create the check button first. So yeah, create check button, or check icon. Let's not call it check button. It's an icon actually we're going to use. Yes. So let's get the icon. So we're going to be using font awesome. So just go to Google and type font awesome. You might have to create an account, I'm not sure. Wow, internet is down. Yeah, so yes, font awesome. Go to the icon section. And now we can see the icons here. Let's type check. Now we can see all the checks that we can use here. So let's use, what check should we use? No, if I stay longer here, I'm just gonna waste more time. This looks nice. The circle. So we just take this here, copy it, and that's about it. Oh, we might actually have to go to our HTML and call the font awesome library. Yes, we will have to get the font awesome library. Let's do that real quick. CDJS. Yes. Styling. Yeah, this should be it. Copy. Now we go to, I thought we already did that, but totally crossed my mind. Yes, so yeah, we did the Google font. It wasn't font awesome. Yeah, my bad. So now we create a link first. So yes, now we go back to the JavaScript. Our main .js. So now let's go create a constant called checkmate. Let's play a little bit. Yeah, checkmate. This is just to prove that you call it anything. It's a constant. It's not going to change. The name is not going to. The only thing with it is when you set the name, you don't change it, except you go here and change it. But you can't change it within the codes. That's what a constant is. While a variable you can change. So yeah, this is real beginner stuff. Document dot create element. Going to be button. Then checkmate. Dot inner HTML. Not inner text this time, inner HTML. And we just paste. Oh, let's go back to here. Yeah, take this, and that's what we paste. So whenever you have a situation like this where you have two double quotes, and you can obviously see because of using Visual Studio Code that's giving us an error, just change the inner one to a single quote and leave the outer one to a double quote. And that should fix it like it did here right now. So yes, end the line with the colon, and we create a class list for. We'll call this checker button. So the next thing is, yeah, let's append this checkmate to this checker icon to our div, to our to-do div. So we call to-do div dot append child checkmate. So the next thing is our delete button. So we're going to we're going to create our delete button first. And just so you know, you can also create an icon. You can do a checker icon and a delete icon. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I wanted to do one that is an icon and one that is a button, just to show the difference. We'll call this constant delete button. Document dot same thing. Create element. Call this element button. Then delete button dot inner HTML is equals to, because we're not dealing with text now, we're dealing with a DOM. Call it delete with a capital. This is what is going to appear on the button as its name, as its like, yeah, name. If you put, you could also put, yeah, delete, remove. You could put remove if you wanted to, and it would show remove instead of delete there on the button. And we'll create a class list. So I hope you're seeing the pattern here, because there is a pattern, and that's how you're going to understand this better. Create a class list button. So now we append our delete button to the to-do div. So yes, to-do div dot append child delete button. So now let's see how it's looking. Read. You can see it. Voila. You can see they're not working because we haven't created a function to actually tell it what to do when we click it. But yes, we can see it right. Yes, see now. So I can also see the board that we created for the UL that is showing right here. Might have to remove it if it doesn't look that good. So we could go into styling a little bit, or no, let's go and actually finish the JavaScript and then go to the CSS and just add some basic CSS, because we're not, just so it looks okay. And after that, you can also add whatever you want to it. But the whole purpose of this tutorial is just to, yes, to have the the core functionality of how a to-do list should look like and how it should work. So now we can wait, let me see something. So you see, when we write, this write doesn't erase. So I have to erase it. And I don't want to do that because I'm very lazy and I know how to program. So a good way is we can just add a functionality that actually erases it whenever we write a to-do. So this input section becomes blank. So we don't maybe one time writing a to-do and we forget to leave it blank, and then we added something else and then we submit it and we see, oh, we made a mistake and have to delete it. So yes, how we do that is go to the, just put it clear input after button click. So we just say to do input dot value equals, yes, empty column, and this should do the job for us. So when I write, oh, I want to go for Jiu-Jitsu. I don't know how to spell it, but yeah, Jiu-Jitsu. You see, and it erases. Perfect. I want to read. I want to write like a computer, and yeah, basically. So now let's add the functionality to this button. So when we click them, they actually work and do what we want them to do. So we have to create another, you guessed it right, we have to create another event listener for the button, and we also have to create a function for the button. So let's create the function first, and then we create the event listener. Function delete button func, and just put an E there. You can put also events depending on you. Just changing it up, switching it up, showing you what you can do and not do. And we create a constant. We'll call this constant delete L with a capital equals E the target. So now let's create the delete to do. Button functionality. Well, I think we know that because we're in the function called delete button func. So yes, so we will use an if statement. This if statement says if this function, if this constant dot its class list is 0, class is 0 is equal to and 3 equal to delete button. If it's equal to this class list right here, then we create another constant called to do app, which equals the delete element, the parent element. So after this, it should be what I'm thinking is, I don't know, let's create an animation. Let's create an animation for, no, let's not do that yet. Then it'll be to do app dot add event listener. Now let's create it. Transition end, because the video is getting quite long. Let's create it. Function to do app dot remove. So now let's go back up. Instead of to-do button, it's going to be to-do list because that's where we are. And the function name is different. I prefer copying the function name. Because it's long and sometimes you can just misspell something really quick. Now let's see if it works. Hello. It's not working. Why not? Because we need to add the functionality to of the checker. The checker icon. This is going to be if delete element dot class list 0 is equal to checker button constant to do app with all capital equals to delete the parent element. So to do app dot class list dot to finished. And now we save it. Let's see. Gym, eat. Does the button work? Not yet. Why isn't it working? Because we need to go to the CSS and finish it up. That's why it's not working. We haven't finished our CSS to add these animations and so the next thing is we need to add some animation. Number one to our div and the font and how it's going to appear. Remove all the unnecessary So let's first go to our UL. To do UL list. Didn't really style it. No, I didn't. I didn't style it. So let's put some style to it. So a minimum width of 23%. The list style. No, let's do it so we can see what we're doing at the same time. So the list style is going to be none because we want to remove those colon. And we can see it's out. So the next is to do. Let's see what we called it here. To do button, exactly. The font family is going to be the same. Sans serif. Font weight 700. Then put the dot. There's no need of having two font weights. So delete button next. Background is going to be repeating linear radiant. Yes. Copy this again. And we can see the changes being enforced. Change the font family. And let's move it. Change the font weight first. $700. And now the display. Flex. So yes. Position. Not absolute, relative. So now let's go to our div elements, the div itself. Div list. Just to be sure, let's see what the name we give it, because sometimes, yeah, div list with a small l. Exactly. Things like this are very important because just that little change affects it. So we'll give it a margin of 0.5 rem. Background of linear radiant. Probably that's a better way of saying it. We can see the changes being enforced as we click the magical save button. Color black, negro. Font size, font weight 700. Display is going to be flex. We can see the changes. Font size is going to be 1.2 rem. That should be good. Yeah, more visible. Justify the content to space between. Yes. Let's create some space between them. An align item to center and transition. This is why the delete button didn't work, because we didn't set this. All 0.4 seconds ease. So now, still not working. We'll have to go to the JavaScript to see if we put something that and padding left 0.5 rem. The thing is, we haven't finished the animation yet. So when we finish the CSS, we'll check it to see if it works, and it should actually work after finishing the CSS. So the next thing is div list li flex one. Exactly. Now there, it's looking more and more like the list we want it to be. And that's it. Let's go to our checker. Dot checker button. Background is repeating radiant. Take our color the position is relative. So now let's go to the icon itself. Fit check circle. No, don't forget the E. Yes. Copy. So once you change the pointer events to none. Then yes, finished. This is the animation that we set our delete button to. So for the button to actually get deleted, we have to set what happens when we check line through. Yes. And yeah, we should set an opacity. Zero 0.5. Now you see it's actually working because I have clicked the button. Now dot fall. Transform. Translate Y 7 RAM. Rotate Z to what angle? 23 degrees. An opacity of 0. So gym, buy food. Okay, now we need to go to our main.js because it should be working now. Spell transition. Exactly. So that was what was holding our delete button. Spelling mistake. So don't forget to spell check spelling when coding. If I could spell coding right. And then I can check it and I can delete it. No, I can't. I didn't add the class list fall. Add fall to class list. Let's see. And yeah, false. So yes, Jim, read code, study, problem, solve. Yes, so as we can see, everything goes when it's deleted. Might just have to come here and remove that border in the container too. So perfect. This is a to-do list. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned. Try it out yourself. Change some things. Just understand the whole functionality. And I will be posting this code in GitHub. So hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to comment if you have any questions. If I didn't explain something well that maybe you need further explanation on maybe why it works, check out all the functions we used here. And probably in my GitHub too, I'll put some of the functions, I'll explain in depth like what those functions use and maybe other scenarios where you could use these functions. So yeah, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and I'll be uploading new tutorial videos, new projects, and yeah, just and don't forget to click the bell icon too to get notified when I upload a new video. And yeah, bye.